Willie Clancy himself said, and I'm kind of paraphrasing him now, but doing something like this, I learned to play music for the pure love of it. And I think that was, if you wish, if there's a founding statement to Scoil Samhraidh Willie Clancy, that could be it, that could be the summary of it.
It's just a meeting the people, and when they play the Rolling Wave, I think we're here. It has started, you know.
First thing I do every year when I get my diary is I put in the Willie Clancy.
Yeah.
On Christmas Eve 1918, Willie Clancy was born into a musical family a few miles outside Miltown Malbay in West Clare. During his lifetime, he would go on to have a profound impact on the development of Irish traditional music. His music and his musical values endure, being deeply embedded in a summer school named in his honour, which attracts thousands of people to his hometown in the first week of July for the annual Scoil Samhraidh Willie Clancy.
He was a larger-than-life figure physically. When I saw him first, there was a wonderful shine of him, this reddish, healthy shine, and he had a huge impact on people. He would draw people in. When I first saw him, there was a bunch of people around him, and it was Clancy that was this attraction, because he was very humorous, very approachable. A remarkable man, tall, imposing figure.
And he used to bring us down the steps down to his workshop, and he used to be showing us how to make grooves, and he'd put grooves on the whistle with the lathe. You know, he'd spin around. He was awful nice. He was all nice and very witty. There was a bit of a crack in him, you know. He was a lovely character.
Hello, Bobby, and Anne, and Sean, Susan, and Angela. This is Willie Clancy. You'll probably recognise my harmonious voice. We're here at Tom Quailey's. We have Seamus Innes here, and Annie, your sister, Pappy Flanagan, and James Flynn. Mary Flanagan has just left. That's a friend of ours. We had a few tunes here which Hannah's taken back to you on the tape. We didn't indeed, I suppose, take the job very serious, but we I'm sure you'll find something in it that'll interest you anyway, within the whole lot. The story of the ghosts and all, etc. I'll tell you sometime when I meet you about the ghosts.
Especially
Well, there's a special law here for James Lane. He don't feel like saying it himself somehow. I hope to see you sometime, Bobby, but in case you're coming home soon, in holiday or anything like that, you might take home some of the bits of pipes I've left over with you. And then, sorry for having you burdened with all that rubbish I've over there, pipes, God knows what. But if you're coming home soon, which would be all very glad to see you home and hear you playing a few tunes and all that. Goodbye now, and God bless.
Willie was a remarkable man. He was remarkable in that he had great insights into the piping, and he favoured an older form of music. He was mesmerised by the music of Gareth Barry. Although he never met him, his father had a great interest in Gareth's music, and his father knew Gareth and arranged for his burial. And that type of music, Willie's music on the pipes, it was a mirror image of what Bobby Casey was doing on the fiddle. I could see it was very special.
I suppose that Willie was an uilleann piper, and obviously people in the community looked up to Willie Clancy. He was such a consummate musician, singer and uilleann piper, and everybody held him in the highest of regard. I got a sense of that over the years. He'd come visit me at Rossum in Thomas Street when I was going to lessons there. So I got a sense of the man, and I remember in 1972 at our annual Chuno in Termafecca, kind of standing beside him and getting a sense of his sense of humour, his conviviality.
He would always have played the tin whistle at home. That's what he'd have played. And then we'd meet him up in Maisie Friel's, and that's where we'd hear him play. So, yeah, treasured memories.
But I remember the first Sunday I was over at the house after he got the set of pipes, and he was very proud. He fitted them on himself. He says he tackled himself up with his father sitting in the corner, a grey-haired old man with his very thin hand and a shaky head. I'll never forget it. You know, he put up a very shaky, thin, well-shaped hand, and he said, "Stop there," says he, "stop." And I was very disappointed because it was the first time I'd ever heard the pipes. And the father noticed that Willie had missed a note, even though the pipes were completely new to Willie at that time. He said, "Stop there," he says. "That isn't the way you play that note at all. Play that note again," he said. So Willie went back anyway, and he played the reel as far as the note was supposed to be wrong. And he drew this note nicely, and the father says, "That isn't the way it goes at all," he says. He says, "It goes, yeah," you see. Yeah. And Willie sounded the note again. And to me, the note sounded exactly like the first time. But apparently to him it wasn't. Yeah. He says that's the right way to play that note.
Willie was great company. He was a funny man, and he liked to sing a song. And he had an abiding interest in the Irish language, which he held in very high regard. I was in his workshop too. His workshop was probably bigger than his house. He was always interested in, as most pipers were, in making reeds and bits and pieces.
Of course, the next big time I met Willie was in Dublin. That's before that's before both of us went to England. And we used to go to a dance hall there called the Galway Arms. It was in Parnell Square there. And it was owned by a Tipperary man, Billy Whalen. And Billy used to play the flute, and he had two lovely instruments there. There were little clips there and hanging up on the wall, you know. And it was a tea bar, and Willie and Bobby was there also, Bobby Casey, and we'd come out there like from the dance hall, and Willie he was playing the concert flute great that time. What a player he was, and Billy loved to hear him play.
We hoor me Willie a wad, so chonich me just. Ich schäme sein, dass Christ dabei. picture like a minted as far as beyond. Well, Milish and Shark, Flat Kill, and some Walish. Need a Kugus a shaft. And here will be Willie. It's only car this was called the Sedgwood, would you wash a boss?
I was the Agna over there, more feeble, more on Eves.
More grab short. More whole rintach. Character. We shut on Trahul, she gained you, School Horse. It's unspecial against the goal, it's a changa. We can go lick, we go. We should coolly out, Chapsha, Nachasha Sach Lifa. Sminky do Chelama, you will one. Ach, Dominic, to chair. Damachrawage. Go when Uncle you lout, Lifa, no kill, to Kashantanga.
Years ago, I was down in Cork in a small town, and Willie Clancy was there, and we met in a pub, and we had a couple of tunes together. And this character, I heard afterwards that he was a professor of music at a university. He said to me, Jackie, do you not know that the accordion is not very suitable to play with the pipes? So I put down the accordion, and Willie Clancy says to me, for God's sake, Jackie, don't mind that idiot, play away mad. And Willie says to me, that fella, he says, he knows as much about music as an albatross.
Willie Clancy died on the 24th of January 1973 and was buried in the Ballard Cemetery on an exceptionally rainy day. Musicians from all over Ireland descended on Miltown Malbay to pay their respects to the man and his music. Dying at the age of 54, his ambition to make and repair uilleann pipes remained to a large extent unfulfilled.
I have different memories of Willie Clancy's funeral. My mother drove through the night down there for that when we just arrived. And I do remember Tommy Potts playing the tune My Love's in America, and he was actually crying, and the tears were going off him down onto the fiddle and down onto the counter. It was very emotional.
J.C. Telty was my uncle, my mother's brother, and he was really great friends with Willie Clancy. I remember when Willie Clancy died, I remember J.C. crying. And I would never have seen an adult crying, you know, and I remember that he was so lonesome after him because his body was gone. It was like the sadness of Willie Clancy's death, it was a cloud over Miltown. He was a young man who died suddenly, so that rocked the place.
He died all too soon, and one of my regrets is that it occurred to me to record Willie and Sean Keane playing music as we were going down quite frequently, but I wanted to get a good machine, and Micheál O'Halloran had one, and he was recording Seamus Ennis, so I thought that Willie was considerably younger than Seamus, that I'd have plenty of time, but alas, it wasn't to be.
6 weeks before he died, he was with me, the dear man. And I had a song, or he had a song. The name of the song was Farewell to Miltown Malbay. And he was mad about that song, and we was often in a session, you know, and he'd say, it was Farewell to Miltown Malbay. Whether the man knew he was dying or not, I don't know, but it just touched his heart somewhere. But I would sing the song anyway for him, and after an hour or two again, he'd say, give us a blast of that song again. And I said to him, I will not, because the audience that's listening to me will have that bloody man, and he sang but the one song, you see. I wouldn't sing it a second time. So 6 weeks before he died, we was in a session over in Innis at the Old Ground Hotel, and he wanted that whole song a couple of times sung. He was dead in 6 weeks after. He was a grand man. Ah, Lord, he was a grand man.
Immediately after his death, Willie Clancy's many friends and admirers began to discuss the question of a suitable memorial.
Fine man mentally and a very ambidextrous musician. He played the flute, whistle, pipes, concertina and fiddle, which explains the reason why we have all those classes for those instruments. And he was also a very proficient step dancer, and that is the reason that we have added the dancing classes to our programs. Now, people time and again have said, why not have other instruments? Would we'd love to, but we try to confine it to what Willie did himself, you know, and things like that. My own personal feelings about him was one of, I had a deep personal respect for him all my life. I have reason 1,000 times to have a lot of gratitude for him. All the music I got from him, all the friendship I got from him, and all the personal help I got from him when I needed. But we're not going into details about personal things. I had a great respect for him, and I suffered a severe loss when he died, because I lost the dearest friend I ever had. Now that's my feelings about him.
It was an idea that Murish and Martin Talty had, I think, because they knew Willie at the time. And the idea was to start the summer school in conjunction with Willie being here and in conjunction with him and through Junior Crean, Martin Murish, Paddy Joe McMahon and a few other people. And I think it was hatched from there, and then poor Willie died and the first school was held on the same year that he died, 1973.
Willie Clancy, Murish O'Rourke and Brendan Bannock particularly, I think, would have been significant. Obviously they did share passion for the music and the culture, but also Murish and Brendan have been, you know, they did research, they were scholarly in terms of publications, high quality publications.
Well, they were kind of intellectuals. They saw something in the culture, the language, the music, and it was nothing to do with commercialism or business.
The summer school was it seemed to be a rare concept, but eventually the summer school started, and it's reputed that there were about 80 students at the first summer school. From the first summer school, the founders of the summer school knew too that they really were onto something. This was not a flash in the pan, and of course, if you look at the period in which the summer school was founded, it was an ideal breeding ground for a summer school. You had the ballet boom in Dublin back in the late 60s. They reflected in the Dubliners perhaps more than any other group, we'll say, for argument's sake. But on the back of that, you had people in the urban areas, in Dublin included, who were now becoming very interested in the instrumental. The pipers were formed, the People was formed in 1968, showed that there was an interest in piping. There was more actually music, instrumental music in Dublin in the early 70s. A young group of people who had been maybe influenced by the Dubliners, then went to explore the instrumental music, and then found themselves listening to Plank Street. These were the people then who started coming into Miltown Malbay. They wanted to know more. They wanted to really get to the roots of the music. And I think that's why I say 1973, that the early 70s were an opportune time for the summer school to start off.
From the beginning it was clear it was just to pass on traditional music and to pass on, initially it would have been very much the music of West Clare, particularly the instruments associated with Willie Clancy and the people he played with.
I think Morris's vision at the time to have all the older generation there to come in and to get them to pass on what they had. He had the right idea. He was passing on the music in the most natural way.
Just to let you know of some of the coming events. All the week, I'm sure you're all aware that at the Cormac Begley Spanish Point we have a very special exhibition of folklore photographs, and it's a very rare and unique chance to anyone who wants to see our cultural heritage on photos, and I think it's very well, it's free, and every evening from 2 to 5. To be honest, on Saturday...
Micho Russell was a huge, far-sighted, visionary man, and he at that stage, he decided that this is what Willie would really want, where people would be able to go and meet together and play music there, but more importantly, that the younger players would come along and be able to sort of, as it were, sit at the feet of the masters and listen. And in the early years it was very much like that.
Well, you're all very welcome to Kathleen Smith's class, Kathleen Smith from County Antrim, and we've all come in here today to hear our very distinguished visitor, Paddy Kelly, playing the fiddle, and it's the 12th of July 1997 and we're at the Willie Clancy Summer School. So what will we do? We have a tune from Paddy maybe? I'm spinning to the side.
Have I to play?
No, do.
What?
Anything. Will you play a tune?
Right.
Do.
What we have in West Clare, it's all about the traditional music. And I think even, I've been thinking about it, you know, the original committee, there was a kind of a combination of the local experts, if you like, and people who had moved into the area, the likes of Murish and Harry, who saw the value of what was here. And sometimes you have to come in from outside to really realise the value of it. And like the importance then, I think they realised, of preserving what was here and sharing it and keeping it alive and keeping it moving. And I think that really has happened.
I really believe that one of the most important and the most attractive things about the summer school from the very word go was the complete absence of any competitive element at all. And the fact that, and I think it may have been a struggle, because to say it's an easy way to organise a festival is maybe a little bit untrue, but to keep that competitive element out of something that has grown to the extent that Scoil Samhraidh Willie Clancy has grown is quite an achievement, I think.
It was about learning, it was about connecting with all the musicians, it was about the sort of the line of the tradition. And I was very, very impressed with sort of the attitude of people like Russell, Martin Talty at the time, Junior Cregan. They were people who were practitioners of the music, who were there and understood its importance, understood its centrality. But basically what they wanted them was to be able to create an atmosphere where people could come and learn, but most importantly to enjoy.
For the students, Clare musicians John Kelly and Junior Crehan and singers Nora Cleary and Tom Lenihan are a living bridge between the music's past and its future.
But we felt, going back to the conversation that we had with the likes of Martin Talty, with Junior Crean, with Brendan Brannock, with Willie Clancy too, before 1973, that the idea of having a forum of tuition, a school, a place where people could meet and where they could learn tunes without having any additional pressure at the end of the week or the following week of going and taking part in a competition, that we felt that would actually give them a greater appreciation of the music than sitting down to learn to play for competitions. We felt that they would have time to think about the music.
We have pupils and students coming as far from, they're staying in Lisdown, Varna, Lahinch, Mullack, Quilty, Miltown, and all available accommodation houses are packed.
There has been a huge growth in the numbers participating, instruments catered for, and the range of lectures programmed during Scoil Samhraidh Willie Clancy. Now, there are 8 instrument schools in addition to singing and dancing schools with musicians, singers and dancers coming not only from all parts of Ireland, but from all parts of the world.
In 1973, say if there were 80 students, there were only 4 instruments on offer then. You had the uilleann pipes, the whistle, the flute and the fiddle, and they were all confined up in the West Clare Resource Centre, what we call it now, within the old vocational school.
Now, when you're making with the ordinary way with 2 fingers off, the chanter must be on the popping strap, and always have the popping strap because the cloth isn't tight, you see, so that it will distort the sound if you don't have it. So come down again now.
With the people organising the classes on behalf of the school, and you know, it's evolved amazingly well. Like, we have almost our own street on the Ballard Road, you know, Shroud and Cormac. I sometimes reflect it's more like Shroud and the Peabody, you know, because we have the whole street there, all the houses. The classes were small in terms of the numbers, you know, like obviously the numbers of pipers in the early years was small. Now we have well over 30 different classes. Like, I don't know, maybe it's like the Olympics of uilleann piping, you know.
The summer school started with a very limited number of instrumental classes, specific instruments. The pipes, I think, was the real focus at the start, and it was like, I think even before Willie Clancy himself died, there were plans afoot to organise something that would help with, because I mean, I think the uilleann pipes at the time were in serious difficulties in terms of the future of the instrument. And I think it grew from that. Then you would have had fiddle and concertina and whistle and flute in the early years. And then gradually other instruments were added to the programme. Dancing, there was a time when the dancing just absolutely exploded, the set dancing particularly, and it became an enormous part of the summer school.
We came out of Scoil Samhraidh Willie Clancy. Brooks Academy we started, and like you know where the name comes from. The name comes from Lanigan's Ball, because that's all. I spent 6 months at Brooks Academy learning the steps for Lanigan's Ball. That's all it is, nothing more, nothing less. But we decided at that point, when we had our dancing class going, that we would sort of give it a name, and we gave it that name. But then we went back every other year, and then I think it was 1984, I think, that Murdish asked us would we do a set dance workshop there, you know, because Joe, the numbers had sort of got so big that he needed to recruit more teachers.
There is nowadays a bewildering variety of summer schools and festivals. Some, according to the critics, amount to little more than excuses for late-night drinking. The Willie Clancy Summer School, although the publicans of Miltown Malbay have no cause for complaint about it, is not one of these festivals.
All the classes and the increasing classes and numbers attending there, it was all through word of mouth. That they never set out to advertise or to get people to come there, you know. So it just increased over the years, and people went back year after year after year. People went back to classes there, and you know, people love to go there. And then you have this opportunity. It for some reason it lit a spark with all the most important musicians in the country,
and they all head for Miltown Malbay. So there was a unique opportunity to meet all these people in one spot for a week every year, and I think that was, you know, it was a great attraction.
All the different instruments being added, you know, and even seeing the change from the very beginning. But I suppose it was the demand, you know, and it was so unique. The Scoil Samhraidh was so unique to any other school of music.
And I can see it in the classrooms. The classes are just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So it has grown enormously, and it's just from, I suppose, the directors and what the ethos is, and it's just been amazing really to see it grow.
Paddy and I started teaching a course there in the mid-1980s, which in itself was a kind of an indication of the kind of thinking that was going on at the Willie Clancy Summer School, which was different from that purely competitive, horse it out, if that isn't too dismissive a way of putting it, but that there was a sense that there was more to this. And it all arose from an idea that Brendan Branagh had first articulated, which was that there were a lot of people who were developing great technical skills in Irish music, but that it was only in the context of sessions, and that there was none of this pauses between the tunes where knowledge about the tunes and the people who played them was transmitted, that whole thing of the intimacy of music was being lost, and the personal character of music was being lost. So Brendan asked us, would we put together a course which was about introducing younger musicians to the things about the older music that made it special.
This thing was being mooted, but they had to talk about it, you know. The banjo was going to make its appearance at Willie Clancy Summer School, which I thought was kind of funny. Seeing as Jimmy Ward is from Miltown Malbay, you know, and I always respected that man. But anyway, we had this chat, and Murray said, look, we'll have, maybe you decide what teachers you want, but they're saying they want it. That was his big phrase, they're saying they want it. And I was saying, well, what do you want us to do? What do you want? Sure, you'll know yourself. And I said, how many teachers will I get? You'll know it yourself. And I said, well, are you going to advertise it, Murray? And this is a famous statement from Murray. Are you going to advertise it? It'll go on the brochure the same as everything else. He said, we don't want the place littered with them either.
Dálacha sé maithaid agus so dúnéidir ó Alban do bháid tógacha London me ar dúis agus an bhogam mar amachtaí na dáil, hí sa sem ceol clásicach bheith na mlíonta. Agus bhí nach chéine caintear Scoil Samhraidh Willie Clancy catadó dí Scoil Samhraidh Willie Clancy. Mar sin dó go ben bhíon dar giún go gúas go dí Scoil Samhraidh Willie Clancy agus hamadul ann nach chain bhíon á hin.
Over the 48-year history of the summer school, different generations of musical families have played vital roles in passing the tradition on to students.
I think if I had to kind of pick on a musician or a family that really had an impact on me when I met them first, when I started recording with them and then becoming friends with them and all that, it would be the McCarthys. And the next generation of their children start growing up and they're all super musicians and just great fun, great personalities. And I think they really, for me, if I had to come up with an example, embody that whole thing that the Willie Clancy Week is about.
It's wonderful then to see my own children, and like they're moving on now, but like they're all teenagers, but like that they're experiencing that now, and they're at the stage now where I'll be taking a step back and they'll be going out spreading their wings and hopefully have the same enjoyment and meet the same wonderful people that I met on my journey. So it's really, so I mean, it's great to stand back and watch my children go on, the next generation go on from it, and like that's the importance, and my friends' children.
Miltown on, like the same shafting the stories of being has never the long soft day enough le and har Cormac agus I just more gone stone with the Micho Russell Torach Livingston agus never Hushmar showing the car and get doing Ramraj just kind of star and now how do you here so
an lá an jobham is toch ha me heen agus me bhein chéile Ciara agus inis le blian le rábblion an os Welp an nach rábblion an os trú nach bhfuil ran a bliana ha ferdi aling agus I gan bblion se chuing hasúla gom go méid den éigen teileling agus cím nora inis bhí ferdi a stig ar na sesiún lena Hannah her Simon agus sir glúan Simon agus an flútadal lá an sesiún agus an son cím Maintri Ariel agus Maintri Alán and son on Ryan lads óga dígur sucha lads a baint an a hang of agus gachar da hain le Scoil Willie Clancy in sa tacht and son agus hasúla gom go géime móvach agus móinín and son a baint an maid son.
I always kind of found like one of the best things going to Miltown is like you nearly see your parents in like a different light. You know, like when we're at home we think like, oh, we have all the music friends and we go playing tunes. And then you go to Miltown and Mum would head off, she's like, I'm going to meet my friends in Friels, and then Mum would be going off playing tunes and meeting up with her sisters and meeting up with the Murrays and just kind of a different world and nearly seeing your parents as
I keep telling them they're living the life I lived, except that they're good musicians. I wasn't.
I suppose like we'd usually stay in a mobile for the week, and it's always quite exciting pulling up into the campsite there out in Spanish Point. And I suppose down through the years you've got to know a few people outside maybe of their Dublin friends or musical friends, and we've met a family from Laois and another family from Kerry, didn't we? And you'd end up having a game of football or camogie or hurling, you know, in the evenings. And so it's not always the music session, you know, it can be the sport session too. I think it was like 2009 or something, maybe, like years ago, because we used to go out and play tunes and dance and yeah.
Yeah, do you remember the one time we went out at like thinking, oh, we'll get in early to get a spot like you do to play tunes in town? So we went to McCarthy's early, as in like 10:30 or 11 o'clock. May have been that night, actually.
I think it was that night. We were down the Highlands.
Remember that dress? Oh my god, I love the swing.
I think this was the very night that Anna got vocal nodes for the first time.
Yeah, that was lots. I think I sang probably about maybe 4 or 5 hours on that windowsill.
To Cormac Begley and Helen Diamond.
To anyone who would listen, anyone.
Just it brings together all the friends and families over the years. We have been going to that. I think I've been there nearly every year since I was born. It's definitely one of the best weeks of the year, one of my favourite weeks of the year. It's just a thing you don't miss.
Yeah, I think the Willie Clancy Summer School is the mecca for me for Irish traditional music. It's where to go to meet everybody.
I never missed a festival. I was always there. And then I brought you along when you were babies. And
and we're attending it ever since. I think really the memories that we have really memories of the love of music, the fun, and meeting all our friends every year. I think it goes back to very early days of the Mulcahy family, and as I said indeed earlier, with Dad attending as a young gentleman.
We're going to take a short break from fiddle playing at the moment, and the next artist, another great friend of John Kelly's, a Dublin musician, through and through, a great tin whistle player, has travelled the world with the Chieftains. Would you please welcome Siobhán Peoples.
I play an air called On Book of Scoil, and during my association with John Kelly, Sean O'Reilly, in the Kyoto recruiting days, John very often asked me to play this, and he felt rather nostalgic about it. On Book of Scoil, the dark, slender boy.
My own connection with Miltown started in 1979. My father had left the Chieftains at the time, and the first thing we did was go to Miltown, and we've gone back ever since. But obviously there's a very strong family connection with Miltown Malbay and West Clare in general. Willie Clancy, when he came to Dublin, would have visited my great-grandfather John Potts in number 6 the Coombe. It was a house that was open to visiting musicians from the country, and John Potts was an influential piper. He taught Brendan Brannock, Tommy Reck, and he would have had influence on Willie Clancy's music, and they would have shared obviously their interest and love of music in that house. The connection continued then on into when Tommy Potts first visited Miltown, West Clare, and became friendly with Padre O'Loughlin during the Flag in the 1950s. And indeed my father revisited Miltown with my mother and Tommy, and Tommy was reputed to be very relaxed in Miltown. He felt among his own. There was people who understood music, he understood his own art. And that's always been the case in Miltown.
Over the years, informal sessions and gatherings at Scoil Samhraidh Willie Clancy between musicians young and old have helped develop individual playing styles, facilitated a handing down of the tradition, and inspired younger generations of musicians, singers and dancers.
I met Tommy Reck's grandson, and this man here, young man on the right, and he was reluctant to go into the school, the class. So I saw Fikra Potts, and I grabbed him and I said, "Do you want to go out and play football now? Have a break?" "Oh yes." I said, "Here's the deal. See that young man here? Take him with you, play football, and you can have a long break." And so he just grabbed him, he just pulled him and brought him out, and he had a great time playing. And afterwards he went back into the class, and everything was he's still playing, and he's Tommy Reck's grandson, a dear friend of mine, so I was very happy about that. But then I realised then when I brought Cahill around to work his magic, that there was Tommy McCarthy's grandson was there too, Thomas Giles, there's Fikra Potts, and grandson of Leo Russell, maybe a great grandson. But so I just thought this was fantastic, and I wanted to make them feel special because they came from remarkable dynasties.
I also think Willie Clancy is so incredibly special because the iconic musicians that all of us might have looked up to over the years, no matter how busy they are in terms of touring schedules or how amazingly popular they are around the world, 99% of them will ensure that they make that time to travel back to Miltown in the first week in July every year.
Comes back to getting to see your heroes in action.
The first time I went was in, I think it was about 1978 or 79, and I remember asking my mother, could I go down to Miltown Malbay, and she said no, I was too young to go. And anyway, I was kind of devastated, but Jose Begley intervened, and Jose approached my mother and said that she'd look after me down there, and Jose had an apartment rented for the week, and she said I could stay in the apartment. So my mother, I think when when Jose volunteered to keep an eye on me, she said, fine, fire ahead. So I headed off. I was on a Thursday of the last weekend. I headed down with Jose, and we headed for Miltown. The car broke down in Bird Hill. We were rescued from Ennis. But anyway, we got to Miltown Malbay late on the Thursday night. And as Jose said, she didn't see me again until the Monday morning when we were coming home. So anyway, fair play to Jose. It was her that cut me loose.
See Seamus Innes walking down the street. We could see Liam O'Flynn walking down the street, Sean McDonagh, all those people that we thought so much of and after music, and to think that they were here in our town for a week. Like, it was great.
It's Tommy, I believe, yeah. It's Tommy, John Kelly, Micho Russell. Is that
Tommy O'Connell, I thought.
No, it's not Tommy. I think we both without even
John Kelly.
John Kelly without a doubt.
Yeah.
He was, the year before he
passed
died,
away.
Yeah, passed away. He came into the class to us.
He always came in.
He'd come in. He came in anyway. He was very, very, kind of in a reflective mood, and he spoke. He spoke about his mother. And it was really like, you could kind of feel like there was a certain tension in the room.
Yeah.
As he spoke about her, there was a sort of something going on here. And he started singing.
Talking about her singing the Blackbird, and then he started singing the Blackbird himself.
And we didn't have it.
But it was just
one of those moments where we just looked at each other and said, oh.
And I suppose it's like the best music. There is no recording of it except in here, or in here.
Well, that was an extraordinary note because it was a very, very intense moment. because like men talking about their mothers can be an intense thing anyway. You know, because they're so influential on us. And John, you know, and he was quite senior, you know, at that time, and he'd been ill, and so he was in a reflective mood, and but when he sang that, he sang beautifully, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. Yeah,
it was absolutely, it was fantastic.
To get from one end of the town to the other, yeah, can take a long time. It depends what it is, like, because like you really want to have a plan. Like, if I was below on Friel's coming up, and you wanted to get up there quick for something, you'd be like, oh, I have to go play for Áine Hensey in the roadie or something, and I have to meet someone in Clare Fim and get up quick. But yeah, usually on the way back down, it's a lot slower. Like that, you could stop in every pub. You'd meet Áine Clancy there in the door in Clancy's, and sure, you'd have a small brandy while you're talking to her. And then you go in the side door, Michael as, and through the smoking area, and back out the front door to see what the crack was. And then you stick the head in the window of Flynn's to see what the story is inside there. And then, like, yeah, you're meeting people all along the way, and then there could be great street sessions as well.
You need a big old wig on, a hat, and disguise yourself because it's impossible. You meet everybody and anybody.
I think you're normally, if you're around, I'd normally be in Friel's for around 11ish, because you can feel the kind of bus call. It's going to be happening soon. The buzz is lifting for that bus to Cork. So once you hit for Cork, whenever you get home, you get home.
The bus to Cork is like a passage through time. Like it goes on for so long, but at the same time, like, it's often the highlight of the night. Like
I don't think anyone actually knows where Cork is.
I was going to say, of course, myself and Kevin met down in Miltown Malbay as well, back in the day. But we'll say no more about that.
Well, Siobhán met her current boyfriend in Miltown Malbay, you could say. Those little sparks were flying in the back of Friel's last July, and now she's happily involved with her Miltown fame. So a bit of a repeat of history there, like my parents. I suppose you could say man has fallen in love in Cork at various nights of the week. We'll only embarrass him if we go into it. But sure, look, that's part of the crack, you know. Like the Willie Week, it's kind of like an alternative universe, and you kind of fall in love with someone for 2 or 3 nights, and then you're like, oh Jesus, what was I thinking? And sometimes the flames last a bit longer, and sure, look, sometimes you forget about it by the next night.
And also, like, you've basically been matchmaker for years now as well, sorting people out.
Oh yeah. Miltown romances.
Traditional Cupid.
I had one myself. They're infamous.
I'll say something about how it is in general, and then you can say how we met in the kitchen of the Crosses. Don't go into too much detail.
Yeah, no, yeah.
You know yourself, you've been there at the early hours with us. Anything could happen at 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning when you're up in the hills of West Clare. So it's been romantic notions.
If you're not ready to go home yet, you get on the next bus going to Cork, and then Cork is one of these. We can't really talk about that actually.
Literally something as simple as, I mean, you know, 2 girls later and a marriage, and just happens as simple as playing a few tunes in the kitchen in the Crosses of Anna, myself and Adele, like literally. There was no big deal about it. Like, I was sitting down, Adele came in, we had a great session. I actually remember the session. lovely, really nice music. Then we were just chatting. Sure, I think we arranged another few tunes for the night after, as you do, probably, you know, and just great times. It's just, as I said, a chance meeting, just over a few tunes and across the Savannah.
You make it sound so innocent, but yeah, you couldn't go into much more detail for this.
No, just a lovely few tunes.
Small things like sitting casually in the front bar in Quaidys and Micho Russell suddenly turned around and offering to teach it. Now, he wasn't offering teaching, he actually gave me his version of a tune. And it came from nowhere, came out of the blue, and just that typical type of generosity. And to meet all these people, like to hear like Paddy O'Loughlin playing, to hear like some great flute players like McCann, PJ Crotting playing, I mean, it was inspirational stuff.
So one of the highlights of the week for me was attending the House of Lords and listening to some of the older musicians and just the knowledge that they had, like you wouldn't get it anywhere else in the country.
I think I had one of the best days of my life down the back of Blondes. It was a roasting hot day, really sunny day. Everyone is there. You know, it's mad. That day that I was hanging out with Alec Finn, like,
it's Piper William Clancy, Sir William Clancy, in fact. If we don't say Sir, you know, it'll never be heard afterwards, but you're going to hear it now. This is Piper William Clancy, and he's going to play us one of the nicest slow airs I've ever heard in my life. Dark is the colour of my true love's hair.
Well, I think if you had your camera now, or these cameras on the streets from the 4th of July to the 11th of July, you see a very strange street, all right, very, very empty. You look like one of those towns in the Western movies with the tumbleweed coming down, blowing away in the wind.
It's hard to pinpoint, I'll miss everything.
On a personal level, I honestly think what I will miss most is meeting the people that we really only meet once a year.
I'll miss meeting all the great friends that I've known since we were teenagers, and playing music, teaching with them, and I'm deeply, deeply sad that it's not going ahead this year, and meeting all those great friends. I just love meeting them and catching up, and you know, we've all grown old together really, and had so much fun, and we have so many memories of playing in the bars and great sessions. And you know, when we used to come over, when we were working in London, and you'd come over and you'd spend 2 weeks in the pub playing music, and you'd go back and people would ask, you know, how was your holiday? Well, you couldn't tell them you spent 2 weeks in a pub and not on a beach. But it was just purely because we just had fun, and we knew we were in safe houses because we were in these wonderful bars in Miltown, and everyone, all the publicans took care of us.
Obviously miss the friends coming and all the crack, like, because we go to a lot of festivals during the year as it is, and we meet a lot of people, but there's only certain people, especially older people, that you meet like once a year at the Scoil Samhraidh. And like the likes of James Keane, who lives for the Willie Week. Every year you see the countdown on Facebook and it's great, like, and then you meet him on nearly the first day. Or
I would miss, first of all, you'd miss the music. You'd miss, I would miss meeting all those people who were in my concertina class.
The summer school started in my lifetime, and it's been part of my life for as long as I can remember. The excitement, the buzz, the personalities, and I think that's a huge part of it. The people, the music. I mean, it's summer in Miltown when the Willie Clancy week starts, and it's very, very hard to imagine a year now without it, and I don't think we'll really realise the full value of what we've missed until it's over, until it doesn't happen.
It's so sad that we can't have it this year, but we have it to look forward to, and that's one of the things about it.
Yes.
We always have it to look forward to.
Yes.
Even in the, you know, like, when, you know, things weren't going well for you, you know, bright days of summer, Willie Clancy week, and that was it.
Music, friendship and family.
I'll give you back of the plans. There's 4.
Tunes, company and crack.
I would say integrity, that's important, and following to tradition, and the other thing I would say is respect.
Miltown Malbay is Willie and Miltown Malbay are the originals. Yeah.
Crack came to, yeah. Cole agus Pian.
I'll do it too, great crack.
Essential and magical. Well, 2 words, do you?
Community, camaraderie, and learning.
Cleachta, Fuinneamh agus pobl.
Tunes, the crack, and the shift.
Speak for yourself.
Ah, come off.
Environment in Miltown it's a school, it's a summer school, it's never lost that impact. We don't call it the Willie Clancy Festival, it's a summer school, and so it retains that underlying importance, and yet the fun, the music, the best music I've ever heard or indeed ever been involved in is arguably in Miltown.
In the words of Willie Clancy, to the parents of would-be musicians today, I would say that it's important to encourage the younger folk. We have to rely on them to keep our music alive. Other than that, get a grasp of the Gaelic tongue and develop a love for it. Apart from that, have patience, learn to walk before you run. You might have a flair for the music, you might think you're good at it, and you might be tempted to plunge ahead without perfecting your technique. Well, it might be in your head, but your fingers will let you down. So start playing early, develop your technique with patience, practice and perseverance.
We could be here all day listing off wonderful festivals around the country. But the Willie Week is on a different scale to that. I mean, just in terms of the numbers, in terms of its impact on people.
McGillivar is a lot. It's just exactly right. It's perfect. It's perfect. And the coalescing is perfect. And you wouldn't want to change that. You couldn't change that.
Martin, Talty and Murish followed up in a conversation they had with Willie, and they started a summer school. And we've been going there ever since, finishing the concert on Saturday night, which was the concert night, and doing the mass on the Sunday morning.
Maybe you'd sing the song, would you?
Farewell to Miltown, I will. Singing.
Yeah.
Farewell to Miltown Malbay, a long and sad farewell. The sorrow in my heart today no words of mine can tell. I'm parting from my dear old friends, the scenes I fondly love. May happiness attend them all, and blessings from above. A bright and pleasant youth was mine among the good folks there. No kinder hearts can e'er be found than those that throb in Clare. And oh, how crushed and sad I feel, my tears fall down like rain, as I look my last upon the place I'll never see again. The sea is gemmed with twinkling stars, the sun shines bright through them. The rocky shore is filled with foam from Spanish Point to Friel. The verdant fields go rolling down from Ballard to the sea. Oh, what a soul-entrancing sight is spread out there for me. Farewell to Miltown Malbay, farewell to one and all. The sights I've seen, the joys I've had, I often will recall. For with my heart I love that spot where I was born and nursed, and where upon those sun-kissed flags I crawled around at first.